What's going on YouTube and four-wheel drive fans? It's Andreas here from Symmetry 4-Wheel Drive and welcome back to the channel. Now if you saw our last episode you would have seen us installing all new suspension components in the rear of the 80 Series LandCruiser behind me here, and in today's episode we are going to be working on the front of the 80 Series and installing new suspension components there. So without further ado, let's jump right into the install process of all of our new suspension at the front of the 80 Series LandCruiser. So the first thing that we are going to do on the 80 Series in preparation to install all the new suspension at the front is to just undo the lug nuts on the wheels, and from there we'll just loosen those up, the lug nuts, and then we'll move on to removing the end links of the sway bar. Then we can jack the car up and get it ready to install the springs and shocks. So let's jump into that. So before the car is jacked up and higher, I'm just going to loosen up the top shock bolts inside the engine bay. So there we have both of the bolts and bushings in the engine bay for the shocks removed, just over there. So now we can start jacking up the car. So we have jacked the car up and put it on jack stands. So what we're going to do now is raise the axle on the one side and then take the spring out on the other side. So what we have here is our Superior remote res shock, and we've just set up the rubbers as they were on the original shocks on the car, or the shocks that were on the car, these Old Man Emu nitro chargers. So we just set up those rubbers, and now we're going to put the shock in the car. So now we have the shock in place with all its rubbers on the top as well as on the bottom. Next we will be installing the remote res canisters with their brackets. So what we're going to do is there are two bolts on top of the strut tower that will fit this remote reservoir bracket from Superior Engineering. So we're just going to undo those two bolts. Up there it's very dark, you can't see, maybe I can shine a torch. So on top of the shock tower, or the spring tower, there are two bolts that we're going to undo and then mount that Superior remote reservoir bracket. So we have mounted the remote reservoir bracket on top of the spring tower here, and that's just two bolts, one at the front here and one just in the rear, and we just had to remove the one piece of rubber shielding that was in there just to fit this. So we're going to see what's the best way to route and fit the reservoir and its piping, and we'll show you what we come up with. Sorry for all the rain noise, but this is how we have decided to mount our remote reservoir for the 2.0 Superior shock absorbers. So we've got the adjustment facing towards the rear, got it mounted close to the body but enough space in case of flex, and the line is tucked back as far as possible without any kinks towards the body, so the wheel hopefully doesn't touch it. So now we can do the other side, then get the car back on the wheels and then continue with the build. So the car is back on its wheels now, off the jack stands, and we are going to install these Superior billet sway bar extensions. So we're going to get under the car, disconnect the old mounts for the sway bar, and then put these extensions in. So that is the sway bar extension done on this side. Now I'm just going to do the same on the other side. So here we have the 2 sway bar extension brackets. So now we're going to move on to installing the front adjustable Panhard bar. So first we're just going to take the old Panhard bar off. So I'm just going to weigh this old Panhard bar. So there we have 5.4 kilos for the old Panhard bar. So now we're going to weigh the superior Panhard bar. And we have roughly 5.4 kilos as well. So they weigh quite similar, even though this one is adjustable. So that is the Panhard bar installed now. So these are the Castor correction plates for the front of the LandCruiser 80 series, and we got these from Zombie Offroad locally in Cape Town, South Africa, from Henry Mouton. So this will set the Castor back to factory spec once you've lifted your car 3 inches. So for the Castor plate install, what we've done is just get some weight off of the wheels, not fully jacked up, and then what we're going to do is just loosen off these bolts and then take the bolts out and drop that front radius arm. So I've marked off on the tabs for the radius arms where we need to cut off in order for our Castor plate to line up with the hole. So we just need to cut off that little section of the mounting tab, and then we can mount the Castor plates. So that looks like it clears nicely. Now we just need to do the tab on the other side. So we can see here now that our holes have plenty of space to have the bolts go through them. So to fit the Castor correction plates, you need to ratchet strap around the diff, and I just use the gearbox cross member so that you can rotate the diff to get the radius arms to align with the Castor plates. So I've got that in now, and I've just snugged up the bolts, and then once the vehicle is back on its own weight, I will tighten up all the radius arm bolts on the Castor plates. So that's almost done. So if we have a look here, we have the zombie Offroad Castor correction plates installed. We just need to get the car back on its own weight and then tighten them up to spec, which I think is about 170 Newton meters. So we will do that now. So guys, finally we have all of the superior engineering suspension installed on the car, as well as the Dobinsons springs and steering damper. So we're just here at first alignment out in Stukland, and we're getting everything dialed in to get the suspension geometry back to OEM specification. So I ran out of time when installing all the parts, so First Alignment has helped me out, and they're installing the tie rod and drag link, as well as the extended brake lines for the front and rear diff. So we're getting all of that dialed in, all set up. The 80 series is just behind me here. As you can see, it's on the ramp and on the alignment machine, and we're getting everything dialed in, and that will be the whole suspension saga complete. I'm so excited to get this all done. We are going away for the weekend, so it's Friday afternoon now, and we're just getting everything set up, and then away for the weekend we go. So I'll show you a little couple clips of what's going on, and I hope you enjoyed watching this whole suspension journey, and maybe you found it insightful and it taught you a couple things. And yeah, please like, subscribe, and hope you enjoyed it. Cheers.